I will say though, so when the admissions committee like puts us together, right, in
Mm,
a class, we kind of tell them our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, like what we
right.
love. And I actually have met many people who like outright like from like pre-orientation were like, I love economics. I want to go into
Yeah,
consulting
and
and like
that's yeah.
all that. Right. And there's people like me who I'm like, I'm a hippy dippy diplomacy person who does like I know I'm gonna be poor. I got it. I got it. But so I think when the admissions committee, I mean, you said like 45% goes into finance, but what about the rest? I mean,
Mm,
I think that um, I think the reality of our world is that it's becoming increasingly, I mean, it is becoming increasingly commercialized, globalized. Like capitalism is always in your face in America, and it's beginning to be in your face everywhere else in the world. So
right.
it is an increasing sector like in our world. So um, it's definitely very important to kind of balance a class with people who are going to pursue those fields, if that makes sense. I I see what you're saying because maybe that's not the best path necessarily, but at the same time, it's still a growing reality, and I think it's actually makes sense that the admissions committee is considering these people who want to go into consulting and finance because it's the real it's a part of the world that still needs to be reflected.
Mm,
But I think they also balance that with people like you and I who want to go into more like public service jobs, and maybe not so much focus on the money, but focus more on the impact. And one thing that I also wanted to bring up, just in terms of like actually consulting in finance, I think it's really interesting because I always thought of consulting in finance as this like just like making money for yourself, right?
yeah, right.
But one thing that I like did a lot of work in high school was with the concept of fair trade economics.
Mm,
So, and granted, this was done through a nonprofit, but it was still very much like related to economics, and it's this whole idea where you're using globalization to empower local communities by basically giving them access to a system that ensures that they're not exploited through just living wages, through very protective and safe working environments, and even there's with fair trade, there's even a consideration of the environmental impact on the well-being of the employees or with the local communities. So it's a very interesting thing because I think even as we have like more of the cut and dry like Wall Street kind of job, I think consulting also lends itself to allowing this sprawl of actually some good in our like world. That's the thing that I at least like realized about consulting is that yes, you may go into that specific sector, but I think it's still what you make of it. There's
mm,
still people who do consulting, but for nonprofits who utilize the system of fair trade economics, for example, to empower local communities that would actually be that really like have improved their life standard as a result of commercialization. For example, the women I worked with in Iganga in Uganda, they basically they made these like um, they made jewelry and purses out of paper beads. They just got recycled paper of any sort. They would roll it up and then they would use a varnish
mm,
to make it into beads and then they would sell that, right? And they were trying to sell it to tourists in Uganda, but then the founder of the nonprofit I worked with, she was in the Peace Corps, and she was like, "Hey, let's sell this in America." So although it was a nonprofit, it was still very much utilizing, I think, a lot of the skills that people in consulting and finance
right.
are kind of like getting equipped with. So that's kind of like what I did, but it allowed these women to, for like the first time in their lives, be able to support themselves without, because obviously in Uganda the laws are not favorable towards women. There's a lot of obstacles towards women in Uganda, so they were able to support themselves. I mean, these women, it's a group of 21 women in Path of Paper. They literally like all work together in this project. They help each other out with the children. They even take in orphans sometimes to help out with the village. So they are very much like the breadwinners of their family, and it creates a sustainable income for them.
Hmm.
And so that's just kind of my point on how I get consulting is really what you make of it, because it could actually create good in this world. And one thing I'll say about Harvard culture is that I'm finding it very cooperative, right?
Yeah.
Like you always want to work with someone on something. So if anything, like having a large sector of, yeah, we talked about this, like consulting, you can do a lot with it, especially an economics degree. There's so many directions you can go with it. Really, there's so many different directions, and it's high in demand. But by balancing, I think, like a class with a highly like economics focused people with public sector people, you're kind of opening up the gate for cooperation between these two groups. For example, like the nonprofit I worked with. Like we very
Mm.
much worked with business people to kind of set up our like fair trade economics model. The model was developed by the World Trade Organization, which features like experts in all economics matters
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So that's my long-winded way of saying that maybe it's not as bad as we think, that so many people at Harvard are so focused on consulting and finance. But I think what you said before is also very important. We have to recognize, at least create some consciousness, and I think they're trying to do that now with with Harvard culture. That we still have a responsibility to do some good in this world.
Hmm. Yeah. And to boil that down, it's not what you do, is what you do with it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
I absolutely love your story about, that fair trade example with the Ugandan
Thank you.
women. That reminds me that you have a purse that is made out of the soft drink can opening. I don't even Yes, there it is. Yes. I suppose for audio listeners you will not have the pleasure to see what a beauty that is, but what are those things called again? They're like soft, the
I think it's bottle cap. Is it not? Is it bottle openers? It is the bottle openers,
right,
right?
like
Or
for
bottle
like
cap things.
right,
Yeah,
you the yeah.
yeah. People know what we're talking about. They're
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, the
I hope.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I absolutely agree with that. And I think to consider consulting as a purely self-driven, self-interested career is does not do it service, because
right. Exactly.
I think any career has the potential to be self-interested or magnanimous, or how do you say, yeah, for service, right? So I
Right.
absolutely agree. It's what you make out of it.
Right. And it's, I think, also just how you see yourself existing in this world. Some people really do think that by consulting for this business and helping them make money, I am putting good out into the world. And I mean, it's their life perspective, it's their life view.
Mhm.
Maybe not one that I like take on myself, but it's just what they see their purpose in life as. So I get it.